The objective of this video is to highlight the life and works of Mary Cassatt and how she influenced the American art scene and the global feminist movement. Mary Cassatt, one of the leading American artists of the Impressionist movement, was born in 1844 in Allegheny City, in Pennsylvania. She was the daughter of a well-to-do real estate broker, and her upbringing reflected her social standing. She went to school, which prepared her for an upper social lifestyle. As a young child, her family moved to Europe for several years, then moved back to America. At the young age of 16, Mary enrolled in Philadelphia's Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts, against the popular belief at the time that girls should not pursue careers. She began her private art education with lessons in the Louvre, and continued painting relatively unknown until 1868, when one of her portraits was selected at a prestigious Paris salon, an annual exhibition run by the French government. Being unsure of herself and remembering the words of her disapproving father, she submitted the work under the name Mary Stevenson. She was met with resentment and disrespect, and soon found that the program became boring and unchallenging for her, which prompted her to quit and move to Europe, where she could study the works of old masters on her own. Despite her family's strong feelings against it, she moved to Paris in 1866. Upon the outbreak of the Franco-Prussian War, Mary decided to return to the United States and live with her parents again. This time of her life is plagued by the struggle she faced with her father refusing to support her art. Soon after, she was approached by the Archbishop of Pittsburgh, who wanted to commission 2 copies of the Italian master Correggio. The Paris Salon accepted her paintings for exhibitions in 1872, 1873, and 1874, which strengthened her position as an established artist. She continued to study and paint in Spain, Belgium, and Rome, eventually settling permanently in Paris. In Paris, her admiration for Edgar Degas blossomed into a strong friendship, and Mary Cassatt exhibited her paintings with the Impressionists in 1879. This brought huge success into Mary's life. She became a very critically acclaimed artist. Mary's later life was plagued by dormant periods due to her family's health problems and her sister's death. Mary painted on and off during that time, and after her brother's death in 1912, she was soon forced to give up painting for good, as she struggled with her own health problems. In 1915, her vision became so bad from progressing diabetes that she became blind. She lived 11 more years in total darkness, robbed of the greatest source of joy in her life, and died on June 14, 1926 in France. Now we'll focus on 3 works of Mary Cassatt's which represent her style development. Little Girl in a Blue Armchair is an oil-on-canvas piece made by Mary Cassatt in 1878, with some modifications made by Edgar Degas. An interesting fact is that Degas' friend's daughter was who posed for the painting. Here we see a little girl lazily resting on a blue overstuffed armchair, with one arm underneath her head and her legs hanging over the edge of the armchair. She's wearing a nice outfit, but you can see her day is done. She has thrown herself into the armchair and ruffled her clothes. She is wearing pretty black shoes with a shiny buckle, and her socks seem to match the blanket. On the chair next to her, we can see a small scruffy dog curled up in a ball sleeping. There's nothing else in the room except for 2 more pieces of furniture that match the ones in the foreground. There are floor-length windows in the background covered in gauzy window dressings. In this piece, the artist uses background colors that are similar in value, which makes the lighter colored turquoise in the foreground along with the white dress the young girl is wearing really pop. Despite the fact that Degas helped a bit in this painting, you can still see her art style quite prominently, especially in the slightly textured brushstrokes and the washed-out background windows. The painting is very cheerful and bright. Mary Cassatt's art style is a perfect example of the impressionistic style of that time. She used textured brushstrokes, mildly distorted space, and atmospheric perspective, while also generalizing certain parts of her paintings, taking up a paint-what-you-see approach, accurately capturing the feelings of that moment. Next is another oil-on-canvas painting, made in 1880. Although Cassatt mostly focused on painting people and their daily lives, she would occasionally paint still lives like this. Her love of flowers and gardens would often show itself in her work, especially in her still lives. This painting keeps with her impressionistic style, with textured brushstrokes showing itself especially in the lilac and white flowers. This painting is a still life depicting a brownish-red vase filled with purple and white flowers, sitting on a windowsill with the window cracked open a bit, possibly somewhere above ground. Next we have Summertime 2, made by Mary Cassatt in 1894. It's an oil-on-canvas painting depicting a young woman and her daughter in a small rowing boat, watching the ducks in a lake. The young woman is leaning on her side, looking over the edge of the boat into the water, where the ducks are swimming. There are 5 white ducks and 1 male mallard duck in the pond in the foreground, and 3 white ducks in the background. The girl is sitting next to her mother and gazing into the water. Behind her is an oar resting on the side of the boat submerged in the water. Cassatt's use of greens and blues combined with her brushstrokes make this piece come alive. The white ducks and the light-colored dresses the girls are wearing make a good contrast to the darker lake underneath, making the scene look calm and picturesque. The water reflects the colors of the surrounding greenery and the sun. The edge of the lake comes to a green meadow with some trees in the center of the painting. The green grass is very vivid, suggesting a summer sunny day. The artist's use of color and highlights creates a serene, realistic scene while keeping to her impressionistic art style. Mary Cassatt's early art influences included more experimental masters of 19th century realism, such as Gustave Courbet. Those influences carried her into the circle of French avant-garde artists. In 1873, she visited Spain, Belgium, and Holland to study and copy the works of Velázquez, Rubens, and Hals. In 1875, she became fascinated by Edgar Degas' work and Monet's technique, composition, and use of color and light. She was soon asked to join the Impressionist group in Paris. Because of her treatment as a woman in art circles and her struggle against preconceived notions as to her place in society, her world became dominated by the feminine. In this context, Mary's treatment of her subjects becomes very significant, particularly the one that occupies her interest from the 1880s onward, mothers and their children. Mary Cassatt is often regarded as one of art history's most famous female painters. An unmarried American woman living in Paris, Cassatt was able to make a name for herself in a male-dominated movement, defying 19th century gender expectations and paving the way for future female artists. Like many Impressionists, Cassatt is also linked to the study of Japanese art, and is viewed as one of the pioneers of early modern art. As her failing health progressed, she stopped painting altogether. She became a strong influence on the American art collector scene, and was eventually instrumental in shaping the Havmeyer collection, most of which is now in the Metropolitan Museum. Cassatt's role as an advisor to art collectors benefited many public and private collections in the United States. In conclusion, it is very important to give Mary Cassatt her due place in the world of art history. She was a very influential artist of her time, who spearheaded the Impressionist movement and paved the way for women's rights. Her life and art exemplify her struggle and leave a permanent mark on the development of art in her time, and the progression of women's importance as artists and contributors in professional circles. In the words of Gustave Geffroy, she was one of the grand dames of Impressionism, alongside Marie Bracquemond and Berthe Morisot, putting her on the pedestal of the art scene.